EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Football Friday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen. Give us a follow on X for me at Zander Krause and at JF McMullen for Johnny Mac. New username for me. There, went back to the normal name. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Football Friday, brother? We wrapped up week number 2 and the final week of OTAs. 6 of 6 are now complete.
6 of 6. One more practice until the summer break, and that'll be the mandatory mini camp on Tuesday of next week. So get a chance to see Devontae Smith for the first time this year. That'll be positive, because I think, when you talk about offense and OTAs and things like that, you got to be very wary about who's there, who's not there. Same thing with defense, but in the case of the Eagles, with so many stars on offense, the first practice, it was most of the offensive line wasn't available. Devontae hasn't been it either, so you have guys like Terrace Marshall and Anaya Smith getting first team reps. Going to look a lot different when AJ and Devontae are out there. Obviously more so in the summer, but so you shouldn't panic this early is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Should be everybody back out there Tuesday. John, real quick, what's the difference between, for you at least, or for what you'll consume, what's the difference between OTAs and mandatory minicamp? Is it basically the same thing? One of them just mandatory, or is there any difference in there? Is there team meetings? Is there, what is it? Is minicamp really a mini camp, or is it another glorified OTA?
No, it's a glorified OTA. You can't wear pads. You can't hit. You can't do anything of that nature. But the mandatory aspect means everybody's got to be in. So sometimes it has an impact on it. Contract negotiations first, more so rest of the league than the Eagles, because occasionally they've had a problem here and there. Hassan Reddick, if you want to go way back, Evan Mathis sticks out, but more about the attendance part of it and how guys, higher profile situations elsewhere. As I said, the Eagles have been good at it, but you can be fined if you do miss mandatory minicamp. So from that perspective, a little bit different. On field, again, the mandatory aspect of it means everybody's healthy, should be available. So that changes, because veteran players they're in and out. Sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not there. So that factors into the depth chart part of it as well.
Yeah, have a chance to see the whole depth chart, as you just mentioned there, for next week on Tuesday. That is for mandatory minicamp, June 10th. And then we'll have a little bit of a break, a breather, pre-training camp, which will kick off at the end of July. Right now, John, we still don't know, right? But it could be is there a chance it starts earlier, John, because of the game, because they have that first Thursday game? Like, I was looking at the calendar, that last week of July, which is the Sunday, the 27th, and then Monday, 28th, and then 29th, 30th, 31st through Thursday. I don't know if it'd be that week, or could it be the week prior, which is the 20th is Sunday, 21st is Monday, 22nd is Tuesday. Could it be that week of July, or is it pretty safe to say it'd be that last couple of days?
Well, it'll be one or the other, but I'm leaning towards July 21st, report July 22nd, because of the early preseason game. Right. That's exactly why. So if you do the math from last year, it usually works out. So I would, if I'm a betting man, I would bet they're in a little bit early, but it'll definitely be one of those 2 weeks.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So looking forward to seeing the guys on the field next week for minicamp, and then a break until OTAs, as we mentioned, until the end of July. And John, once the end of July gets here, brother, it's full steam ahead into the season, man. So I'm excited for that to kick off. We will see what ends up happening between now and then, if anything at all. John, we will get into some the Eagles OTA takeaways this week. We'll get into some of the position battles, what we learned from seeing them out at OTs, if anything. But I do think we got to regroup where we are on those position battles. I'm going to talk Jahad Campbell. We'll talk a little Jordan Davis, Ty Robinson, so plenty of defensive line guys, and then any other questions in the chat as well today we will take. But John, I do want to start on the breaking news in the NFL today on this Football Friday. Aaron Rodgers to the Pittsburgh Steelers. What's your first thought on that, Johnny Mac?
Yeah, pretty clear Aaron wanted to play, so that was going to be the place eventually, just a matter of when he would come in. I do think, he'd rather be in Minnesota, but they went in a different direction. And, he knew Pittsburgh would wait. I get kind of amused that people, he's got to be in for OT. He's got to be. He doesn't need to be in for that stuff. So I'm a little surprised it didn't even go into more towards later in the summer to training camp. And, but they'll be better. Got to protect him at this age. But they've had some serious issues at the quarterback position. And we know Mike Tomlin's history, and maybe this gives them a chance to get more out of that 9-8, 10-6 range and get to be a more prevalent playoff contender on the AFC side, but tough to gauge because of his age. But and then I would say the meshing with Arthur Smith, which I don't like on paper, which is more of get out of the way, Arthur.
Right.
Back to make the comparison, because they're always made, Brett Favre, similar type of thing with Brad Childress. It was like, just, go up to the side, Brad. And they had a great season. So maybe they can rekindle that glory, at least for the short term in Pittsburgh. But we'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Aaron Rodgers is going to sign a 1-year deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's supposedly flying to Pittsburgh today, so we'll see if that deal gets signed officially today. But a 1-year deal, and Aaron Rodgers heads to Pittsburgh. John, the one thing I will say about the setup there that you talked about with Arthur Smith, the offensive coordinator there, and Aaron Rodgers is Mike Tomlin is a true alpha, John, in terms of I don't think he's just going to let Aaron dictate everything. He's got cachet. He's got cachet. He's got obviously, his history as a head coach in the league. I don't think he's just going to let Aaron come in and do whatever he wants, which I think will be good for Aaron. I think Aaron works better inside the system, but we'll see. I think that's a good thing though to have Mike Tomlin. I think it's the right head coach for Aaron at this stage of his career.
Well, I think people conflate. I agree off the field. I agree personnel wise. I agree. I'm not bringing in some of his friends because he likes them. That part of it you got to be very disciplined on, but on the field, no. Arthur Smith, get out of the way.
Well, yeah. But Mike Tomlin's not going to tell him that. I just mean you're not going to let him disrespect. You're not going to let. I don't think Tomlin lets that get off the rails. Was my point.
Yeah, I don't think it's off the rails. It's like one of the things I tell the story about Chip Kelly all the time. It's like, yeah, come on, it's not about you. It's about the talent. When you have a player that can manipulate things at the line of scrimmage, you should take advantage. That's any coach. It's not just Arthur Smith. Unfortunately, ego's a part of it. And some guys can't take that step back. And we'll see how it shakes out. And then to me, the biggest part from how much does he have left physically? But I mean, obviously things didn't work out with the Jets, but his numbers weren't bad.
No, his numbers weren't bad at all. But it was the New York Jets. So is that more on Aaron or is that more on that future?
Well, that's what you're saying. It's
right.
A bad organization. I think a lot of people, thought he played poorly. He really played poorly. Complimentary game, as we always talk about from a positive side here in Philadelphia, but 3,800 yards, 28 touchdowns, 11 interceptions for a bad football team. That's pretty good. So it'll be interesting. It's always interesting. Obviously, there's Aaron's unique, complicated fella, as Mark Murphy once said. So, high maintenance. You got to deal with it. We talked about it with CJ here. Is it worth dealing with it for 1 year? Hey, try to catch that magic. Try to catch that late career Brett Favre magic. Maybe you're in the championship game. Maybe you make one run. Better than the alternative, which would have been Mason Rudolph.
I would have liked Will Howard, but I know Will Howard needs some time. He's a late round pick. Obviously, he wasn't ready to go. But we'll see what ends up happening with Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh. I did want to update you guys on that. So another quarterback domino has fallen. Maybe the last of the quarterback dominoes. Aaron Rodgers will return next year. Johnny Mac, let's get into the Eagles OTAs, which wrapped up this week. 6 of 6 was yesterday. You were down there on Wednesday or Tuesday. Were you down there, right? Tuesday or Wednesday?
Oh, the days run the Tuesday.
For
It was
me
Wednesday the prior week, Tuesday this week.
Tuesday last week, Wednesday this week. Johnny Mac, what's your takeaways from OTA? Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown was out there. Obviously, all the big players, most of the big players were here. A couple exceptions, Devontae Smith, a couple other guys. Nothing to be concerned about there. But you saw 2 OTAs now, John. What are your takeaways here on this Football Friday after seeing this iteration of the Philadelphia Eagles, the 2025 Eagles, for the first couple of times down at practice?
Yeah, I mentioned the sharpness a couple of times of the offense. I think it was a lot. Jalen looked a lot more comfortable this year than last year, with Kellen Moore coming from outside the organization. Now, ended up being fine by the end, so I'm not sure how much it matters, but they definitely looked a lot more comfortable. Now, I was talking to some people yesterday, and they pointed out, well, there's also a lot of upheaval on the defense. So they looked, they're just learning and trying to get young players in and trying to get them up to speed. So, but we only see it's very incomplete picture, 33%, literally. Of what we're able to see. So the vast majority is like the ocean, uncharted territory. We didn't get to see it. So people should understand that as well. But all we can talk about is what we saw, and the offense looked very sharp. The football barely hit the ground in 2 practices, and that includes Tanner McKee, by the way. Barely hit the ground, which from an offensive perspective is a positive. From a defensive perspective, probably not a positive. Although you also have to realize 7-on-7s are heavily weighted towards the offense. But, we're talking 90% completion percentages. You'd like to, from a defensive perspective, you'd probably like to make it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, no doubt about it. With Kevin Patullo, Johnny Mac, on that offense, we started there. We'll stick there for a little bit. Last year when Jalen Hurts came to OTAs and he made that comment, 90% new and all these different things, which I don't think it was 90% new, but, he made that comment. The quarterback of the football team made that comment. How much new is this year? Is there anything new? Is it the same exact thing Kellen Moore ran? Is there any new terminology? I know it's Jalen Hurts' offense, but what changes from Kellen Moore to Kevin Patullo?
I don't think much. We asked him, because he knows he probably misspoke a little bit. We asked him about the terminology. There's probably little differences, but more of retreating back to what it was before than anything else. Probably nothing that Jalen's unfamiliar with. So I think from that standpoint, I think ultimately now there's a large enough sample size to know to call it. The Eagles call it the Eagles offense. You call it the Jalen Hurts offense. Doesn't matter what you call it, but that's what it is, and that's what it's going to be. Now, that doesn't mean you're not trying to evolve the things you weren't good at or need to get better at. They're trying to do that. They tried to do that last year.
Right.
But when the games start, they're going to try to win games, and they're going to lean on what they do well. And we all know what they do well because you saw what they did well last year. So until somebody stops that, I don't think it's changing.
Now, it is the Eagles' offense, Jalen Hurts' offense, whatever you want to call it. But Jalen did make that comment last year, 90% new. I don't know what exactly he meant by it.
95%, by
95% new. I mean, I don't know exactly what he meant by it. And again, it did look the same. So but he meant something by it. Something was
Well,
different last year.
he was talking about terminology, and
Is
even
that right?
he
Is
was,
that all it was? You think just
yeah.
terminology
Oh
last
yeah,
year?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. He clarified, but even that was it wasn't
Overblown.
95% new. Just kind of speaking off the cuff, but yeah, and but they tried to do a lot of stuff in the spring and early in training camp that would have been new, and even into the regular season. Early in the regular season, you saw a lot more emotion, a lot more stuff people were looking for. Um, and then they kind of scaled back from there. Still, ultimately, they used it a little bit more, not a ton compared to Kellen's history, but just because that's what Kellen's more comfortable with. Um, and they tried to dump it off to the backs in the spring and the summer a lot, and tried to be more a check down. They've done that again this spring. Ultimately, it hasn't been a big part of the Eagles' offense in the Jalen Hurts era. I think Saquon had 33 catches, maybe. Would you like to get that up to 50, 60? Yeah, probably, but
I don't know. I don't. That doesn't excite me. It doesn't feel like it's necessary to me. Does it
well,
feel like
it's just from the standpoint of taking what's there at times,
right?
as opposed
Right.
to that's what I mean by that. We sometimes turn first and 10 and the second and 5 if something's there, you know, and take that easy yardage versus you know trying to extend play, incompletion, that type of thing.
Right. So offense looking sharp so far. Johnny Mac through the first couple of OTAs, or at least the only 2 OTAs you saw. The 6 are now completed. What about that right guard spot, John? Anything changed there, or does it still feel like that's Tyler Steen until he's unseated by one of the 15 offensive linemen who are on his tailpipe, Johnny Mac? They signed another one this week.
Yeah, I think Tyler's going to have every opportunity to earn that job. Very similar to last year, and he didn't. So until he does, you're going to say it's open ended and be correct. But I do think people forget one of the reasons he didn't win the job is he did get hurt. So he missed about 10 days of training camp, and that was when Mekhi Becton seized it. So if he stays healthy and there's no opportunity there, plus you don't have a Mekhi Becton in the bullpen,
Right.
I think it's heavily weighted towards Tyler Steen being the right guard. But I still wouldn't be surprised to see Matt Pryor, whether it's maybe not week 1, but if there's a little bit of struggles early, maybe week 4, maybe week 5, I still think you're going to see some Matt Pryor at some point. Kenyon Green, we gotta see when the pads come on. But I don't think it was a positive that he was at left guard, not right guard as the backup. At the most recent practice, if you wanted him to push Tyler Steen, you'd probably keep him at right guard. So I thought that was a little bit notable, not the end of the world, but it's going to be tough to gauge. It's tough to gauge any offensive lineman until the pads come on.
Yeah.
But
Especially offensive lineman, defensive line. Any physical position is really, really hard to get a feel for at this time of the year.
yeah, it's like 7-on-7. That's why
Yeah.
I pay much more attention to the receivers and the defensive backs, and a little bit of linebackers and coverage and things like that. And I always enjoy watching the edge rushers flail about in coverage.
Right. Right. Matt Pryor, John, he was in Chicago last year, right? How was
Yeah,
he last year? I'm not sure if he had his
played
grading or
very well. Played very
I think he
well.
played in 15 games, I think it was. I'm not sure
Yeah,
exactly.
he
I
was
have to go
he was a starter, and he had a good season. Not a great team, obviously, but he had a good season.
And not a great offensive line there around him, outside of him, maybe, you know what I mean? Not what he's maybe not bad, but certainly not what he has here in Philly with Cam
No,
Jurgens,
well, they
Dickerson,
gave up a lot of
Rotemarada, and Nate
sacks,
Johnson.
so I
Yeah,
think a lot of people look at that, but when you have a young quarterback who runs around and it's not
yeah.
getting, you're taking a lot of sacks.
Caleb, if anybody watched some of Caleb Williams' sacks last year too, man, they were not great.
Yeah, so, but yeah, he played very well from an individual standpoint, and most of it was at right guard. So I think he was, so PFF had him. He played 1,005 snaps, so he played a lot, and they had him graded as the 21st best guard in football. It's pretty good.
How is he not going to start? 21st best guard in football is pretty good, and then you put
Well,
him on this
as
offensive line. I mean, that's a quick boost right away, just being with the players on our O line.
As a comp, Tyler Steen in much fewer snaps, but he played quite a bit because of the injuries. 399 snaps. He was 75th, and Kenyon Green in Houston with 582 snaps was 76th. I mean, you think about it from the perspective of there's 32 starting offensive guards in the NFL, and he's 21st. Landon, by the way, was 8th. That's pretty good.
That feels low for me for Landon. I feel like Landon was higher than that, but maybe that's.
Oh, remember, he was playing hurt a lot.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so that probably docked his grading a little bit because each play. Yeah, I remember the one game where he played or it was a playoff game, I think, where he was super banged up and he was trying to get across to make a block, and you could see he was struggling to get across. But
there's a lot of context to football, man. A lot of context,
right?
And I try to point it out when we talk about PFF, but they're not taking into account injuries, guys playing through injuries. So he probably would have been 1, 2, 3 somewhere up there if he were completely healthy. But 77 guys were played enough to be ranked, and Tyler was 75th, and Kenyon was 76th.
Yeah,
out of 77.
I think Matt Pryor is going to win that job, but we will see what happens there. John, you mentioned that you look at the wide receivers, the tight ends, the running backs at 7-on-7 a lot. So let's start with tight ends, John. We have our resident Harrison Bryant fan. How'd the tight end room look outside of Dallas Goedert? Well, you can talk about Goddard too, but obviously they brought in Kylan Granson, Harrison Bryant. You got Calcaterra coming back with Dallas Goedert. Actually turned out to be a pretty good tight end room with the return of Dallas Goedert. What did you see there through the OTAs you saw this?
Is our Harrison Bryant guy? Is he here?
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's here. He normally shows up, so he'll be here at some point, but it might be a little early for him. I don't see him yet.
He was he was wearing a Mac McWilliams suit the other day. Mac was all over him. The rookie corner.
Oh no.
From
you telling me he was getting Harrison Bryant was getting locked down by Mac McWilliams?
Well, he should. And in fairness, the Eagles did that's a cornerback. He should be locked down by a cornerback, but he was locked down. It looks as advertised. Conlon's a little bit better of a receiver, and Harrison will probably show up more when the pads come on and it becomes more physical. But yeah, the Eagles, Dallas Goedert turned that into a strength overnight when both sides were able to work things out, and he had the play of the day we talked about. But that's the thing. They did this very tight end heavy 7-on-7 session. So, Calcaterra was able to, and you're trying to create matchups and do things. And so, there again, practice is not a game. So you're trying to work on things, and they were clearly trying to work on the tight ends against some guys like Mac McWilliams and guys that are going to be a little bit more difficult to shake. And Dallas is great. Can't say enough great things. And the other three, okay. Conlon's probably the best. I would say he looked the best. And it's more receiving oriented than anything else. I don't know
The
if he's
best of the
locked.
bottom, or even better than Calcaterra?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
do you think Calcaterra could get unseated as the 2 or what?
I don't think so because the Eagles like him, but I
Yeah, that's
think
what I
it should be
mean.
more of an opening. I haven't seen
Football is
enough.
not always a meritocracy, Johnny
No, it
Mac.
isn't. It isn't. And it's Calcaterra's final year of his rookie deal, so it's not like he's here either for the long term. But the Eagles seem to like him, and I would still lean heavily towards him being the second tight end. And then it would be between Granson and Bryant to be the third tight end. I can't imagine him keeping 4. They might not even keep 3 on the roster. They didn't keep 3 on the roster last year early, and they kind of manipulated it by keeping guys on the practice squad, elevating them early in the season.
Right.
So they could even go that direction. But yeah, I think they should be pushing Grant a little bit more. Well, we'll see if that develops.
Do you think a trade is still possible in that room? I mean, S. Blount brings this up, and before we had the Goddard stuff dealt with, they were talking about. I mean, at least it was speculated in the media because they didn't have anything under contract, that they would make a move potentially for a guy like Michael Mayer, who's now behind Brock Bowers, or there's a couple other guys, maybe like a Darnell Washington in Pittsburgh, who's got Freiermuth in front of him. So, do you think they would still do this? Because the reality is they do have a bunch of one-year guys at tight end. Maybe they're not looking for the succession plan right now, but do you think they could still trade for a tight end, maybe if they're not satisfied by Granson and Calcaterra at 2?
No, I think they got plenty of backups. I mean, they're already satisfied with Calcaterra as tight end too. So I'm not, but they are.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
well,
think
maybe you push Calcaterra to 3, and then you have a succession plan and a guy like Michael Mayer for after Goddard,
yeah, I think you should pay note of what Howie said about day 3 draft picks. If you saw the video in the war room of their passion meeting, he was like, we can find backups anywhere. He was telling the guys that, find somebody with traits, find somebody who has a ceiling, find
Right.
somebody who can become a starter. I think that translates. Now he's talking about the draft, but I think that translates to positional players. Like
Right.
he's of the belief that we can find backups, and they have a lot of backups. They have more backups than they've ever had at tight end, capable NFL backups. So no, and the Mayer stuff. I mean, yeah, that was pure speculation
Yeah, all
because
speculation.
if Dallas was not going to be here, first of all, I said it at the time. I don't know why Las Vegas would want to trade him. Because everybody plays 12 personnel a lot.
Right.
You need 2 tight ends. He's under a rookie deal. So, I mean, and there's other things that can factor in. Is he unhappy and stuff like that? But I don't know. Not being out in Vegas covering the Raiders. Maybe Brandon Hunt's out there. Maybe I can tap into him.
Yeah, right.
Former Eagles personnel guy. So is Anthony Patch. I don't know why they would want to trade him, but no, I think the Eagles are just going to run it with Dallas one more year, and then fix that position long term in next off season, probably in the draft. But we'll see how that shakes out.
If I forced you to put a percentage on the chance that Dallas Goddard is here after this football season, what would you put it at?
10%, maybe
Ooh.
50, maybe 15, because he really likes Jason Michael, the tight ends coach. Really has a good relationship with him. Maybe I'll bump it up to 15.
10-15%. Yeah, all right, that's pretty low. So we're based on
Well,
that, I'm going to say
when you ask, same thing with Josh last year. I mean, Josh Sweat. When you ask a guy to take a pay cut, they can put on the smile and they can put it in. Dallas did. That is not something that is forgotten easily. Um, so, it's the best situation for him in the short term. He wasn't a free agent, similar to Josh last year, so they don't have a lot of leverage. Yeah, I don't put it as a high percentage that he will be back.
John, let's move into wide receivers here, talking about OTAs, recapping the Eagles' 2 weeks of OTAs that they had in these last 2 weeks. What stuck out to you at wide receiver, man? A.J. Brown there for both days that you guys were down there. Impressive. A guy, you know, making $32 million, a guy that really doesn't have to show up. We all know how good A.J. Brown is, but still shows up there, which is I think pretty good. What'd you see at the wide receiver room, John, in the 2 OTAs you attended?
Yeah, AJ's there, and it's a good thing from a leadership perspective, but he didn't work. I don't think he worked at all in team drills. If he did any, I missed it. So he was just doing individual stuff.
Right.
And
I still think it's cool, John, for like young guys, you know, that come in and see a
yeah,
guy
it is
of his gravitas. I mean, whenever there's a superstar, I go to the superstar. That, you know what I mean? Like they light up the room. So I think from that perspective, it is a good thing to have a guy like AJ Brown out there.
Yeah, and there's a silver lining to get some of the other guys first team reps because Devontae's not there. He didn't take many, if any, at all first team reps, AJ. So it was basically it was Jahan Dotson, Terrace Marshall, and Aniyah Smith, and then Danny Gray kind of mixing in. He got a bunch of first team reps as well. So yeah, I've said it. Jahan to me is the best third receiver they've had in a while. I think he can play. You saw it in the playoffs a little bit down the stretch, and having that off season to develop some chemistry. I think it's important. You know, Jalen's got to trust you, and I think now he trusts him. So I think it'll be better with Jahan Dotson. Not that he's not going to get the ball a ton, barring injuries to AJ or Devontae, but he proved when the ball comes his way, he will make plays. And that's what the Eagles are looking for at that particular position. And then I think, you know, Danny Gray, depends what you're looking for, is a better receiver than Johnny Wilson or Aniyah Smith. But, you know, do you want a blocker? You're a run first offense. Do you want a return guy? You know, Avery Williams, Brighton Covey's not here anymore. Avery Williams is hurt. He hasn't practiced at all.
Right.
Don't know what's going on with him. He's out there working on side field. So I don't think it's too, you know, serious, but it's also like, all right, you signed Avery Williams. It's not like it's Devin Hester. I mean, what are we talking about? It's like everybody's put a punctuation on. Who's Avery Williams? All right, what has he done? So we have to see that. And Aniyah is still, to me, in that conversation.
I think Aniyah is done, John.
Well, possibly, but you know, if he plays like he did last year, yeah, he's done.
Right.
You know, maybe he's more comfortable. It's one of the things that I think fans completely forget about is that you got a bunch of 21, 22, 23-year-old kids leaving their comfort level for a new city. Sometimes you aren't. Jihad's from South Jersey and Kyle McCord's from South Jersey, yada, yada. Sometimes you Trotter last year. Sometimes you have local guys. But the vast majority are completely uprooting their lives at a very young age. And people can go back to their youth. If you had to move to another city, how did you feel? You know, it's not easy. You don't know where to go for simple things.
It's good context by you. It really is. Because I lived in Houston when I got out of college. I mean, you're right. You get there and you're like, where the hell's the grocery store? Where is anything? You know, what do people do? Yeah. So I agree with you. That's good context by you right there. We'll see what ends up happening with them at wide receiver. John, anything worth noting from the running back room? Obviously, Saquon Barkley is your running back number one, but you got Will Shipley back there. Anything stick out to you in the running back room, Johnny Mac?
Yeah, H.A. Dillon's quads.
Nice.
You know, I was talking to G Cobb, who's always on the channel, at practice the other day. And she was remarking about his quads. And obviously, Saquon has huge quads as well. The quad squad, Quadzilla with AJ Dillon. And I joked to AJ, well, yeah, AJ's quads don't generate the same speed as Saquon Barkley. I don't know what's going on there. but yeah, there's not the same explosion, not even in the realm of the same explosion. So I don't know how much AJ Dillon has left. He didn't look very quick. I think for people that are, I don't know, there's a lot of weird pushback on Will Shipley for some reason. I think Will's much more explosive. I'm 90-10. Will Shipley's going to be the backup running back on this team.
And I got to be honest, Will Shipley doesn't excite me as running back too. Now, here's the thing. I don't need to be excited by running back two at all. I wasn't excited by Kenny Gainwell all that much, so I'm not worried about it or anything like that. But I will say he doesn't get my juices flowing.
Well, I don't know. I think there's this weird Cooper went through the same thing. There's this weird disconnect that a lot of people do not believe white guys are athletes. Like, he is so much more explosive than AJ Dillon. Like, and people look at you like it's like Cooper DeJean's one of the best athletes on the Philadelphia Eagles. Think about how many athletes are on the Eagles. Cooper's easily top 5. Easily. He might be number 1.
Yeah, he's crazy athlete, man, Cooper DeJean.
He might be number 1. And people look at you like, how could he be? Well, he is.
Yeah, well, I understand what you're saying, but there also is an odds element. I mean, you're an odds guy. You love odds and stuff like that. What percentage of the league is black? You know what I mean? Versus white.
Well, I'm not denying that. I'm saying that's the reason. But Will runs a 4.39 coming out of college.
Yeah. That's not the reason he doesn't excite me. I don't know. Maybe it's that video, John, of the quarterback running it. I know, and you add the context. Quarterbacks are the fastest guys in football, but maybe I just can't escape the image of Will Shipley getting chased down.
Well, if you think you're disappointed by Will Shipley getting chased down after a 57-yard run by an NFL corner, you're going to be really disappointed in AJ Dillon because he looks like the Queen Elizabeth in the open field.
Oh man,
you're going to be really disappointed.
We got Saquon Barkley, man. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Let's be honest.
Yeah. So that's my only point. I'm 90-10 on Will Shipley being the backup running back, barring injury, obviously, which is everything. Now, I think there's, again, if Saquon gets hurt, God forbid, I think you might have a more layered backup plan, and AJ's got to prove he's healthy, man. Because I don't know if he's healthy. I don't know, but he did not look explosive.
Well, he did have that's not injuries, man. Those next thing they scare me. Stuff like that.
Yeah, but that's not about your legs.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Now he's never been. Obviously, his deal is.
I'm just wondering, is he not fresh? Like, didn't he miss? I don't know. I forget exactly what the timeline was, but. Missed the whole year last year, and I think it happened the year prior, toward the end of the year, right before the playoffs, the first stinger, which kept him out a little bit, and then he had the stinger in training camp. So, it's been a while since he's been out playing competitive football, well over a year and a half.
Yeah, so, I mean, he's a 250-pound guy, so speed is not his game. It's never been his game.
Right.
But, coming out, he was a 4.53 guy, which at his size is pretty impressive. What I saw was not a 4.53 guy. So can he get back to that, to where at least you have enough sort of speed to turn into that? I covered Leroy Horde for those old. Leroy was a great guy. He had a great career, one phenomenal season as a second running back to Robert Smith, who we talked about yesterday with Jeff Kerr. And the joke with Leroy was, if you need 2 yards, I'm going to get you 3 yards. If you need 4 yards, I'm going to get you 3 yards. He was being self-deprecating because he had a great season that year. But that's sort of like AJ Dillon. That's what he is. He's a big, powerful back.
Which I don't know if the Eagles will use in that type of role as much as people think. I know it's fun to speculate, quadzilla and short yardage, but they're going to take Saquon Barkley off the field, or even Will Shipley off the field to go to AJ Dillon and short yard. Maybe, probably not that much, right?
No, they're going to ride Saquon.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, in short yard, they have the tush push. I mean, they're gonna, really short yardage. They're gonna still use that, but not gonna use any of the running backs. But yeah, I would say more susceptible, and that's what I was trying to say. It might be a more layered situation than it was last year. Like Kenny's the backup. This year, if they need, a backup for Saquon, it's going to be Will. But if Saquon sprains an ankle and they need a 20 carry guy, it might be AJ. If he's more capable of handling, I would say, a larger workload.
It depends how the responsibilities, divvy up. It sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. But if Saquon's there, I think Will's going to, and I think he's a better change up as well than AJ. So. But we'll see. He's got to prove he's healthy, number one.
There you go. Brian Fleming checks in. First super chat of the day. Thank you, Brian. Does A.J. Dillon replace J-Mac's favorite son, BVS?
No, he's not a fullback.
You are a Ben Van Sumeren guy, though.
Yeah, but I was a Ben Van Sumeren. I'm pissed off they moved him from linebacker. I thought he had a chance to be a good linebacker. Like fullback, all right. He did a good job. He had like 22 snaps before he got hurt, and he did a really good job. If you look at those 22 snaps, and he played fullback. For those who don't know, he was a running back in college when he went to Michigan, before he turned to defense. So he's got some history playing running back. But no, this assumption that Saquon Barkley and Corey Dillon in the same backfield. No, Corey's not a fullback. He's not a fullback. I don't know why everybody thinks, oh, he's big, he can play fullback. Like, Ty Robinson, lined up at fullback, did a great job at Nebraska in short yardage. He's not playing fullback. Maybe down the road, 3 years in a situation where you're trying to excite the fans in a game. Jordan Mailata, they talked for years. Well, give him the football. He's not playing football. No. A.J. Dillon. Corey Dillon. I'm calling him Corey Dillon. A.J. Dillon is not a fullback. No.
Good stuff there. That's the offensive breakdown from the OTA that Johnny Mac has watched so far. John, real quick, let's dive into the defense a little bit. You don't have to go too in-depth here because we are going to talk about the different position battles. We talked about right guard, obviously, on offense, and then defense is where most of the position battles lie, with safety, with corner, with the linebacker. Who's going to be the starting linebackers week one if Nakobe Dean's not healthy, Jahad Campbell's not healthy yet. So plenty of questions there on the defensive side. Who takes over for Josh Sweat? A lot of questions there on defense, but just your overall takeaways of what you saw from the defensive side of the ball through the first 2 weeks of OTA, or the only 2 weeks of OTAs, but the two OTAs you watched.
Yeah, it was fine. I didn't see a lot of terribly bad stuff, but again, a lot of completions. Ball barely hit the ground. So I think if you think about some of the playmakers who left, you didn't see a lot of plays from the defense. Like, you're trying to figure out plays of the day, and it's usually, there's one or two splash plays because it's practice, and usually, quarterbacks are trying to make throws that maybe they wouldn't do in a game, trying to push things. How far can they push it? And you see an interception or, somebody stripping the football away. It wasn't much of that at all. So from that standpoint, you're talking that was my play of the day earlier this week was, Mac McWilliams blanketing Harrison Bryant for a pass breakup. That's it. I can't remember the first week. I think there was a better play in the first week, but it was a pass breakup as well. No interceptions. Again, we're talking about two OTAs. We're talking about drills that are slanted towards the offense, but had a bunch of plays last year at this time. So not that it's the be all end all, but you can see, Slay's just so smart, and you don't have that anymore.
Right.
And CJ is what he is off the field, but he is what he is on the field as well. And you know, those are two big time players. Big Fangio's got to figure out a way to replace.
Yeah, since the start of free agency, John, people, me, you, everybody else, all the people in the chat have speculated, what's the biggest loss on defense, or what's the hardest loss to overcome on defense? And I happen to think that answer is going to change a lot, as you start to see you get back on the football field, you see training camp, you start to see games, you start to see, holy shit, we don't have Slay back there and we're getting torched, or we can't get after the quarterback because we can't set the edge because Josh Sweat's gone. I think the answer could change. But where are you right now on that? Which is going to be the hardest for this defense to overcome? What loss?
Boy, there's so many. Which is the hardest to overcome? I think it's going to be Slay.
Yeah, I would go Sweat or Slay.
Milton, I think at least you have somebody who at least I'm high on, and Moro Jomo. I don't think he's going to be Milton Williams, but I think he's going to be a capable player. You got bodies at corner, and interesting. I think if they put Cooper outside, but that isn't what they're trending to do. I think that would help. But doesn't look like Vic wants to do that. Maybe forced to do it. But then you got to find somebody to play the slot. And there's no obvious candidate there unless you want a bunch of moving chairs and Makuba plays the slot and Sidney plays safety, yada, yada, yada. So you can make an argument for everybody, but I would make the argument for Slay. And then there's the off the field stuff too, which I think is important.
Right.
I think he's going to be very difficult to replace.
Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. Anything else on the defensive side of the ball? I see a couple people asking in the chat about, Dory Jackson, Mac McWilliams. A lot of people are interested in that secondary, John. It's going to be an interesting one to see how it shakes out, who Vic goes with, what player maybe rises up and steals the job or takes the job or earns the job, whatever word you want to use there. Any other takeaways on the defense before we get to our first commercial break? We got plenty to talk about in hour number 2.
Yeah, I think Adore's going to play a lot. What that looks like, at worst case scenario, it's going to be in an Isaiah Rodgers like role where he's going to be on the field a decent amount. And it could be the starting right corner at the upside. And I think, he brings some veteran stability. Good player in his prime. Not a great player, but, when you have so many young people, for all the talk about all the success of the young players, and a lot of people say, well, just do that again. I mean, well, they still had Slay and they still had Brandon and they still had, even to a certain degree, some veteran leadership from Warren Burks, who ultimately ended up playing. CJ was a veteran player. They had guys sprinkled in there. Now, if you start talking about Quignon year 2, Cooper year 2, Kaylee Ringo hasn't really played yet, Sidney Brown, who hasn't really played yet, Andrew Makuba, who's a rookie, Jahad Campbell, rookie. Yeah, it's looks like they're going to take a step back. The question is how much of a step back. They're going to take a step back, but because it's hard not to from how they performed.
Yeah, I mean, I saw somebody talking about this, John. They were like, the defense was better than the offense last year, and they bring back all the offense and not the defense. And while I agree with that sentiment, I will say this: if the Eagles had every single player that they had last year return to the team this year on defense, they still would have a very uphill battle to do what they did last year.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was about to say. They could have ran it back and they weren't going to be as good. That's just the nature of it.
They set records last year. They were an unbelievable defense by every metric. That's a very hard thing to repeat or do again, even if you bring back all the same dudes.
But to the point of, they brought everybody back on offense and they lost a bunch of guys on defense. Remember, the contract situations were already entrenched with the vast majority of those offensive players. Long-term deal for Jalen Hurts, long-term deal for Saquon Barkley. They gave him the extension, long-term deal for running back because of the season he had, but he was under contract. Lane under contract, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson. Cam was the first guy of the extension parlay that's coming. But who are the next guys? Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith. Then it's Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, all defensive guys.
Right.
So it's changing. You just got to be a little bit patient.
Yeah, the seesaw might change. The pendulum will swing. We'll see how it all shakes out. A couple more super chats, then we'll get to our first commercial break. Appreciate everybody watching this morning on a Football Friday. Another week closer. And here you go, everybody. 90 days away from the banner drop at Lincoln Financial Field, where the Eagles will host the rival Dallas Cowboys for week 1, September 4th. Just 90 days, man. That's crazy to me. 90 freaking days. East Coast Rico checks in. What's up, East Coast? Besides Bond or Carter, who will be MVP of the defense? Interesting question there. Johnny Mac, who you got?
Besides Bond or Carter,
I'm going with Johnny Mac.
Who will be the MVP of the defense? Well, I would go Nolan Smith.
I'm going Coop.
I would go Nolan because he's going to get a bunch of sacks, and that's what people like.
I think he gets a bunch of sacks. What are you thinking?
Well, if he plays, if he's healthy, I think he's going to get double digits.
For the sake of the combo. You think double digits?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, if he plays 17 games, yeah, I think he's getting double digits. Yeah, so I think from that, it's just easier for rushers. Just easier. People value that. Cooper's a great player, but it's all people are talking about him. He didn't get his first interception until the Super Bowl. And he, even Quinyon didn't get a lot of interceptions. He was in position, but
I don't think Quinyon had one until the NFC title game, right?
Yeah. So he dropped a couple.
He dropped a lot. That was like a working joke. And
he didn't have the greatest ball skills yet.
Clear why he became a cornerback at a young age, right? Yeah.
Hopefully that gets better. But and people recognize they were having great years, but there was still that sort of stigma. It's just easier for edge rushers.
Nolan at double-digit sacks would be very exciting. I'm going to go Coop because I think he's the Swiss Army knife that keeps the secondary together. Jack Dwight checks in. What's up, Jack? What are the terms of the conditions of the Huff trade? It's a good question, John. I don't think we've gotten them yet. Do you have an update on that?
Yeah, it's a 5th-round pick that could turn into a 4th. Now, I've been told it's tied to performance, which surprises me a little bit. I thought it would be tied to her playing time, but we'll see. That part I don't know. We'll see how it is. If it's tied to performance, I think it's better for the Eagles, believe it or not. If it's tied to playing time, I think it's worse for the Eagles. If that makes sense, because I think he's going to be a part-time player there. So he'll probably play like 500 snaps or somewhere around there, but he might have 8, 9, 10 sacks.
Right.
So that's why I think it's better for the Eagles if it's tied to performance than playing time. But it'll probably be a 5th-round pick. I would count on a 5th-round pick.
Yeah, we'll see what the conditions are once they come out. Jack, thanks for the super chat. Thanks, everybody, for the super chats today. Hit that like button for us on the show. We appreciate all you guys being here. June 6th edition of Birds 365, all through the offseason. We will be here for you guys covering the Philadelphia Eagles, preparing us all for the 2025 season and seeing if the Eagles can repeat as Super Bowl champions. And it starts off 90 days from today in Philly versus the Dallas Cowboys. Appreciate all you guys being here. Hit that like button. We'll be right back in 3 minutes on Birds 365.
Welcome to the Jet Setters and the High Rollers, to the Shot Takers and the tastemakers. Welcome to the viewfinders, the thrill seekers, and the night owls. Welcome to everything you could possibly want on one 5-mile island. Welcome to the Wildwoods. Book your stay today.
The following is a real testimonial from the father of a young injured victim.
I didn't think she was going to make it.
Major Perry's daughter was the victim of a horrific accident caused by someone else's negligence.
If you don't find the right counselor, law firm that you're looking for, you will get lost in the wilderness.
Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm at 215-458-2222 and find out why they say, "We got this."
In our hometown, we all look out for each other. We go the extra mile to lend a helping hand.
Thank you.
We step up to keep our communities going strong. And at Independence Blue Cross, we're here to keep you going strong. We've been deeply rooted in our communities for more than 85 years. And that connection to members has earned us our spot as the #1 health insurer in the region. So while you look out for your neighbors, know IBX is always looking out for you.
Your financial future is on the line. Are you ready for what's next? At Leone & Company Wealth Management, we help young professionals, business owners, and pre-retirees navigate the complexities of building and protecting wealth. For young professionals, we'll help you grow your wealth, plan for your future, and make the most of your hard-earned dollars. For business owners, we provide strategies to protect your company, manage risks, and create a lasting legacy for both your business and personal wealth. For pre-retirees, we'll design a plan to secure your retirement, ensuring you can live comfortably and confidently in your next chapter. Whether you're just starting out, managing a thriving business, or preparing for retirement, we're here to help you take control of your financial future. The first consultation is on us. Get the advice you need without the cost. Let's make your financial vision a reality. Take the next step. Scan the QR code to schedule your free consultation today. And of course, go Birds.
Welcome to the jet setters and the high rollers, to the thrill seekers and the night owls. Welcome to everything you could possibly want on one 5-mile island. Welcome to the Wildwoods. Book your stay today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Football Friday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen. Give us follows on X at Zander Krause for me and at JF McMullen for Johnny Mac. Appreciate all you guys tuning in here today and following us on all the platforms across everywhere. Johnny Mac, OTAs wrapped up, 6 of them in the books. We gave a great breakdown of what you saw through the first 2. Really the first time we're seeing the 2025 iteration of the Eagles on the football field, which is a good thing. You got mini camp next week. So a lot of things moving right along here in the offseason, John. Plenty of stuff to talk about here with position battles. I do want to talk about Jahad Campbell as well. But 90 days, brother, from the season, man. It's moving right along, Johnny Mac.
Yeah, it is. Michael Giannitti, who is the who runs Spot Rack, for those who don't know, but he just put up something interesting. I wanted to bring it up real quick in that he put the number of players with void years on their current contracts for each NFL team. And predictably, the Eagles are near the top. They have 20, but they are not at the top. The team at the top is New Orleans at 21. And it's interesting because if you look at it from that perspective, the Saints are sort of a laughing stock around the league with the cap, and the Eagles are obviously considered the best team, which I wanted to bring up to emphasize that what it means with the void year. If you don't evaluate correctly, it's really shitty for you, like the Saints. And if you evaluate the players correctly, it's really good for you. So that's what it all comes down. It's not about the void years. It's about the evaluation of the players you're using with those void years. So I think that, I'm glad Michael put that up there because it emphasizes, third is Cleveland, who follows, Andrew Berry learned from Howie Roseman. That's what they do it, but they haven't been as successful with the evaluation. Buffalo's at 18, again, successful with evaluations. And then at the back end, the Chargers, the Bears, the Raiders, the Patriots, the Giants, and the Steelers don't use voidable years. And, a bunch of those teams are, it's funny to say the word poverty, but they're the poverty teams in the NFL.
Yeah.
So anyway, I wanted to bring that up because Michael put it out there, and I'm glad he put it out there. Because it's not like you use void years and that makes you a good team.
Yeah, right. It's everything else, but and it does highlight the point you brought up of they're still going to have a big advantage because of their evaluation, not because of what they do with void years. But it is still fair to say, right, John? The Eagles take advantage of it more than anybody else. Now, that's not a knock on them. That if they want to change the rule, they got to change the rule, but they do take advantage of it more than anybody else, at least to the tune of $400 million, more so than the next closest, which I think is around $200 million. If it goes away, it will affect the Eagles more than other teams simply because of that, no?
Well, not until, it in a projection of a world without voidable years, that would have to be pushed off till all the voidable years are exhausted.
So you're talking about like 2035 or 2030, 2030.
Yeah, a very long time, because you're not all of a sudden waking up one day and saying, all right, these contracts are no longer good anymore and you have to renegotiate with it. It doesn't work that way. You can't do that. So, that to me, it won't affect them at all, really, until in such an instance, in such a time, and they reboot the system. At the point you could pass it and collect a bargain, say, all right, no more void years, and you can start it right away. But the contracts you already have would be grandfathered in. So I don't think it'll affect the Eagles much at all. Just, starting a new system where you have to go about things a different way. And I'm sure Howie and Bryce Johnson already have the answer, to be honest, because it's going to come eventually, I think, because the poverty teams are the ones that are complaining.
Yeah. They'll be good. They'll figure it all out. Johnny Mac, let's get back into the position battles. All right. We talked a lot about offense, defense, what you saw from the OTAs and what stood out to you. But let's hone in on those position battles exclusively. We talked about the right guard battle mostly. We'll touch on that toward the end of this segment, just to reiterate for those who missed it. But position battles, let's start on the defensive side. And let's start in that secondary, John. Has anything changed after 2 OTAs? Has any of your thought process changed? Has any player become a dark horse? Anything you saw at the secondary spot, specifically at cornerback, that would lead you one way or another, or give you some information on that position battle?
Well, I think Adoree Jackson, as I mentioned before the break, is going to play. Just a matter of how much, where. If he's going to be a starter, if he's going to be that main backup, could play inside, can play outside. It's been strictly outside, but they'll start cross training at some point. He's going to play. And then if you expand that out to safety, they're trying to get Drew Makuba on the field. I don't know how quickly it happens, but that's the goal. Which I think is probably disappointing for Sidney Brown. Kaylee Ringo sort of, I don't get the feeling, it's of the same type of emphasis that Makuba is. And, maybe it's a simple, those guys arrived before Vic. And this is a player with sort of the Vic stamp of approval on him. From the get-go.
Right.
Now, he's got to prove it in training camp, but in traits-wise, he's got everything Vic wants in a safety, which is mainly more coverage-based than than anything else. And forget about box safeties when it comes to Big Fangio. Just forget about it. The old school thought of a box safety. Not that guys won't come down, not that guys don't have to help and run support, but the old school thought of you got to have a box safety guy. He doesn't want that. It's about coverage.
Right.
First, second, third.
Is that part of the reason they moved on from Gardner Johnson? I mean, he for all the things that Gardner Johnson did well, he wasn't the best coverage safety.
Oh no, he's a great coverage player. But
didn't he struggle last year in coverage? I thought he was the one guy in the secondary that struggled the most.
Well, he's a little bit, and that tends to be with guys who get a lot of interceptions tend to freelance a little bit. Now, Vic likes a little bit more discipline. But again, it's a give and take. You're not getting interceptions at the level of CJ if you're just playing it safe.
Yeah, right. You got to freelance a little bit in order to make those upside potential plays.
But just from a coverage stand, I mean, he was a slot corner. He's a great coverage safety. Now, is he the most disciplined? No. But yeah, he's a great coverage safety.
Yeah, he did get burned a lot though last year. I mean, it was a fact for sure.
Well, every cornerback in the history of the game gets every safety in the history of the game, every defensive back in the history of the game gets burned a lot.
Well,
but nobody.
When you have number one overall defense, one got burnt more than the other, and CJ Gardner Johnson was the odd man out last year in terms of who got burnt the most.
Well, yeah, but again, what do you like the interceptions? It's a give and take.
Yeah, but maybe Vic would prefer to have less interceptions and a more sound overall defense, just like he prefers less sacks and a better, overall defensive line. Not prefers less sacks, but isn't as reliant on them.
Well, I think he'd like both. But he can't have both. I think if you talk, it depends how you frame the question. You talk to him about how important are turnovers, he's gonna say really freaking important. And if you frame it as, hey, does this player need to be more disciplined? You're going to get he needs to be more disciplined answer. If CJ was, Malcolm Jenkins personality wise, and because Malcolm was outspoken, there were things, but I'm talking on the football field as a player, he would still be here. I mean, he is a big safety through and through as a player, as just a pure player. He's exactly what Vic wants out of a safety. The other stuff is why he's not here.
I had somebody comment, John, on our video yesterday with Jeff Kerr, and they commented, why does everybody keep saying we all know the reason CJ Gardner Johnson got traded when I keep looking for the reason everybody's talking about, but nobody will tell me what it is? I couldn't tell if he was being facetious or what.
But you have been listening because I told you 150 times. High maintenance.
Dude, high maintenance for sure.
He's a pain in the ass at times. You ever know anybody in their personal life that a bunch of people don't like? You probably do. It's high maintenance. I mean, New Orleans, Philadelphia, Detroit, Philadelphia, soon to be Houston.
How do you think DeMeco Ryans handles him?
I'm sure DeMeco's got a lot of confidence. Yeah, and DeMeco's younger, obviously was a great player himself here in Houston. So he has that background, a closer in age. I think that'll help a little bit. But, I understand he needs to go into it understanding what he's going to get. And if DeMeco says anything, like CJ took 8 words that Vic said, 8 innocuous words, and took the baton where he wanted to take it. Started talking about scheme and talent and, Darius Slay earlier on his podcast said Reed Blankenship is the leader, which is factually correct, by the way. Calls the signals, does the communicating, gets everybody where they're supposed to be, and said he's the leader in the secondary, and CJ took an affront to it. That's what you're getting. Is it bad? Is he robbing banks? No. But, a lot of people don't like to deal with high maintenance players. Not good, bad, or indifferent. It just is reality. And yeah, I don't know if he's being facetious, but I've explained numerous times why he's not here.
Another clarification for the record on CJ Gardner-Johnson. John, let's move into safety. We just talked about it. You mentioned it already kind of with Drew Makuba and what they're going to do there. But if I had what would you put the chances, John, at Cooper DeJean not starting at slot corner this year? I feel like the way Vic worded it just kept it so open-ended. Basically, wherever I have a weakness, I'll put
now I have to use labels. What do people mean by starting player? Do they mean
such a pain
number of snaps, or they mean the first snap?
Let's go with where will he predominantly be? Where will he predominantly
in the slot. That's what Vic would prefer. And I think they can get it away with it one more year before the business part of it comes in. But I think he's telling the truth in that, well, if Adoree Jackson and Kaylee Ringo both shit the bed at outside corner, he might be at outside corner. If Makuba's not ready and Sidney Brown, and I don't know if he likes Sidney as a player, then he might play safety. Could you imagine Cooper and Reed next to each other? The exciting Mikes, exciting Whites back playing safety together. But I think he would prefer. But to his point, it depends. And he said flat out, he said it clearly. It actually depends on the other guys. Like, he has confidence in Cooper DeJean to play anywhere. They think he can play corner.
Yeah, I agree. But is safety the best use for Cooper DeJean, in your opinion? I mean, I don't think it is, but I'm not going to doubt Vic. Vic obviously knows more about defensive football than I freaking do, so I'm not going to sit here and doubt and question him, but just feels like that's not the best use of a guy like Cooper DeJean, who earlier in the show we said maybe could be one of the best athletes on the football team, if not the best.
Yeah, I mean, I think safety makes more sense than slot to take advantage.
You think he could have a bigger impact on the defense?
Oh, yeah. Safety, much bigger chance to have much bigger impact, just by the nature of the position. Yeah, I mean, slot you're limited to a certain degree because I think people are emphasized when people have good slot corners, but there's a bunch of teams that don't. And, their best receivers are outside. So to me, it goes safety 1, corner 2, and slot 3 as far as potential impact. Just from a pure ability to make an impact. Not obviously if you're a crappy safety. I'm saying if he's as good as the Eagles think he is at any position, he would have the most impact playing safety, I would say. There's the most opportunity to affect the game defensively.
So who do you think will be the starters at safety to start the year? You think it's going to be Makuba?
I do. I think it's going to be Makuba and Reed. Obviously, it's going to be Reed, but yeah, I think they're working towards that. That's the goal.
John, let's move up to that defensive line. You lost Milton Williams, you lost Josh Sweat, you lost Brandon Graham. That's a lot of big names, a lot of good players, and a lot of snaps on this defense. How are you seeing, before we dive into each one, just what did you see from the defensive line in the 2 OTAs so far? Did anything change your thought process? I guess it's kind of hard. You don't see Jahad Campbell out on the field at all, so it's tough to gauge where that player is or is going to be. But what's your thought process right now on that defensive line. What you've called as your biggest concern of the year is that edge rushing group.
Yeah, I mean, earlier this week the starters were Alex Hunt and Patrick Johnson. I mean, again, Nolan's not healthy, so that's why. But that shows you how precarious this position is right now. But I do, get a feeling being around the building, being around a bunch of people, they do have legitimate high hopes for Alex Hunt, which, comforts me a little. I don't think they're blowing smoke up people's, what. I think they believe in him. So that because a lot of times you got to play players because you got to play them because you don't have anybody else. So I think they're excited about Alex Hunt. He is, if you asked me earlier before OTAs, before we got back around the building, I would have said it's going to be Nolan and Ojulari. Now I think it's going to be Nolan and Alex. So some things have changed a little bit. And that's, to me, what they're working for. And is that good enough? I don't know, but they do have upside.
Did Ojulari or Uche look at all like they could play the part? What did you see from those guys?
Well, nobody looks like they can play because you're not doing anything. And really, when you are out there, like they put the edge guys, the defensive tackles aren't out there at all. Now they had 2 team drills, 11 on 11, where they did put the defensive tackles out, but you're not rushing, you're not doing anything. And the same thing with the edges when they have, it's really more of a 9 on 7. They have them out there to replicate really dropping in coverage and not rushing, just dropping. And they all look like fishes out of water, but Alex looks the best. And he, played safety at Cornell, so it makes sense. He looks most comfortable. That is a very unnatural thing for pass rushers to do. And most of them look like pass rushers trying to cover. Alex looks much more comfortable doing it than everybody else. And Nolan looks pretty comfortable as well. He played linebacker at Georgia, off-ball linebacker. And that's the thought process with Campbell when he gets out there. Can he do both? And he's got experience in coverage, did pretty well at Alabama. So he should be more comfortable with it if they use him on the edge. So they have a bunch of those types of players, which is what Vic wants. And what Vic wants these days, Vic gets. And now he's got 3 guys who can sort of maybe project to that Van Ginkel role we always talk about because he used it so well in Miami.
John, would it be fair to think, all right, for a fan to think, Alex Hunt has a higher upside than Nolan Smith? That too far-fetched?
Yeah, a little bit. Just Nolan's a better athlete. Nolan's not that Alex is a bad athlete. But Nolan's like off the charts. So I wouldn't say that, but I think they both have very high upsides. Remember, people were talking about Nolan as a potential top 10 pick coming out.
Right.
Just has some size deficiencies.
Which could be a problem though, long term in the NFL. Agree?
Yeah, well, he already tore his triceps.
That's what I mean. How many years of wear and tear on that body will it hold up at playing at such a high level versus Alex is definitely a bigger dude than Nolan.
And he's very physical.
Very.
How many edge rushers do you know who ran a sub 4.4? He
Yeah,
runs
but
like
it
a
goes back. It's like it reminds me kind of Goddard, where it's like, you know, we love the way Goddard plays, we love the way Nolan plays, but at the end of the day, you are going to have to live with them missing some games if their physicality is ultimately what puts them in a position to get hurt time and time again. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen with Nolan, but what are we 2 years in? He got hurt both years, or he came into the league hurt. He ended last year hurt. So
no, he wasn't hurt as a rookie. He was
no,
hurt.
yeah,
He
he
was
came
hurt
in
at
hurt. He had the
Georgia.
shoulder thing when he got,
Yeah.
when he got hurt.
Well, Well, he had that quite.
Yeah, he had that quote. My shoulder works sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't.
But he played every game. Now, he didn't play much, but he played every game on special teams. He didn't miss any time. But yeah, he had the shoulder problem coming in. I was just looking it up. He ran the best at the combine for a defensive lineman in 22 years. When he did, and he had a vertical leap. He's got an NBA player's vertical leap, like 41.5. Yeah, he's a freak. From an athleticism standpoint. But yeah, I mean, he weighs 240 pounds. He doesn't have the best length in the world. Usually you look for long arms and that kind of stuff. But he's very physical. He plays bigger than he is. And that could hurt him as well. Because I always talk about it with Dallas and Avante is, and you're going to see the same thing with Makuba because he plays. He's like a 185-pound guy who thinks he's 210 pounds.
Right.
And it's great when it works, and everybody saw the physicality with Nolan Smith, and everybody figured out, wow, this guy can set the edge. Look at how physical he is. But then he gets hurt. Now, again, I pointed out, like Nolan's season, he was playing early. I'm not trying to say he was playing a lot more early than he was as a rookie. He was playing, but it really didn't spike until Brandon got hurt, which was November 24th, I believe, against the Rams. And then he started playing starter level snaps for the rest of the season. And that's when he took off. And, he had whatever it was, 10 sacks and through the playoffs in 9 or 10 games, whatever it was. But that's the point. He got hurt in the 10th game. Let's say 10th game for argument's sake. All right. If that's the 10th game of the season, week 1 through week 10, he's out for the rest of the year with a torn triceps. So yeah, I am worried about the size and playing that position. Can he hold up? But I mean, there's not much you can do about that other than, and the Eagles are doing it all over, undersized guys on defense. The game's changing. You can't legislate injuries. If he gets hurt, he gets hurt. But when he's out there, he's a good player. I think he's proven that. And I think he's got a massive upside if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, I agree. I think both of them have a very big upside. I think both of them could be great players. We'll see what happens. Let's go to a super chat here. Johnny Mack from Brian Pumper. What's a show on Birds 365 without a Brian Pumper super chat? Pump, we appreciate you, brother. He says, y'all peeped the game last night. The Halaban was clutch, unlike that lazy bum and bozo. I can't wait till we get rid of this bum. Brian Pumper really has a way with words. He should be a poet or something, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could see it coming. That's the thing about Tyrese. He didn't have a great game, but boy, he wants the big moment. And there's a lot of guys who shy away from that. And they had one lead in the game, and it came with 0.3 seconds left. So that's a devastating loss for Oklahoma City. I don't think Indiana played well. They turned it over all. It was brutal in the first half. But they keep sticking around. Got tremendous depth, and they got a guy who's not afraid of the big moment. That's a good formula.
Yeah. Yeah. That team looks really good. I'll tell you what, John.
That Oklahoma City defense, though, that's legit. but they didn't take advantage of all those turnovers. Got to take advantage of
when these games come, John, at this time of the year, I'm like, man, it's California time sounds nice right now. These guys are 3 hours earlier. They can watch all these games. It's like 11 o'clock. I'm like, man, I'm fucking beat. I can barely watch.
Yeah, I hate it started at 8:30. I'm like, come on. At least they are. I think the next game's 8, so at least that's something.
It's a little better, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, come on. I don't know. Yeah, I get it. Prime time, but I don't think it's going to matter if NFL too. I say, they're kicking off Sunday Night Football at 8:20 or whatever it is. It's like, come on, guys. Give me 7:20.
I know. When I lived in Houston for a short time, John, it was Central Time, and I was like, I got to be honest, Central Time is fire. 1 hour back from everybody. From when the games are just so late on the East Coast, but everything runs off the East Coast time, no doubt about it. Good stuff, Pump. Thanks for the super chat, brother. Good NBA Finals start last night. Pacers came back, won the game 1, so should be good stuff, or should be a good finals there. By the way, the NHL playoffs, John. John, will you watch any of the Stanley Cup at all, or no?
Probably not. I might flip, but probably not.
It is good, man. I'll tell you what, Connor McDavid, he is an unbelievable hockey player. Florida Panthers team's a great team. That's good final there too. So both of them are having a good final right now. I will say the small market teams for the NBA. Do they like it? Do they not like it? What do you think of that?
I don't know. I'll see how the TV ratings are. I don't think it's going to matter. I used to. I think people just care about good teams. I think that's borne out in the NFL. Like a lot of people, and I remember the Pittsburgh-Seattle Super Bowl because that's the last time I wrote about it, and everybody was saying it. Well, it's Pittsburgh, and nobody's going to watch the Super Bowl. Everybody watched the fucking Super Bowl. It's a Super Bowl.
Right.
Doesn't matter who's in it. Green Bay, smallest market of any major sport. You think nobody's watching the Packers if they make the Super Bowl? Now, the NFL is a little bit different, but from a larger perspective,
you're buying the Adam because did you see Adam Silver was saying this too? Basically, he's like, "Would anybody be mad if the Packers?" I'm like, Adam.
I didn't hear him say that.
Oh, he said he was on a show and he was talking about.
Oh, he's right.
It's not a bad thing if the Packers were playing somebody else. I'm like, Adam, you're not the NFL, man. You can't.
No, they're not. Nobody's the NFL, but they're number 2. Everybody's watching the finals in a theory, a level of television sports today. I mean, the NBA playoffs do tremendous ratings compared to the rest of television. Nobody's
how
the
much?
NFL.
How much do they get? Like 15 million, or is it 10 million? Is it 5 million? What is it?
No, it's not that much. Well, on cable, it's like 7, 8, somewhere in there. But that's awesome for today. I mean, I'm a wrestling guy, so WWE does like 1.6 million. They do a demo of 0.1, and they lead all of television. All of television.
How much does WrestleMania get? Like the biggest wrestling events?
Well, that's different. That's on streaming, so it's on Peacock. So used to be pay-per-view. It's different. But from the standpoint of NBA, like NBA playoffs games are the number 1 rated show on all of television. Every game
in June.
Yeah. Every single game they have on. TV people don't understand how drastically TV ratings have fallen. And I'm talking about networks. Forget about cable.
Yeah.
So when they're on cable, they're the number 1 rated TV show for the night, even with ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox. In the demo, which is the most important part, 18 to 49. Occasionally you might get something on television that has more total viewers, but that's not meaningful if it's over 50 people. They don't care about over 50 people. Sorry, over 50 people, and I'm one of you.
Wow,
they don't care about us.
That happened to me on JAKIB. We were talking to his prospective sponsor, and they're like, "Yeah, what's your 25 to 54?" After that, we don't really.
Yeah, they don't give a shit. Yeah. They do that. They literally do not give a shit.
Which I don't know why. I feel like people over 54 spend money.
According to them, they don't.
Oh man, they would have more data on it than I do.
Right,
But I just feel like
exactly,
that's
but
it.
all
I mean,
I
I'm a
know-
younger guy early in my career versus, somebody that's later in their career has had the ability to save, retire, put away money for retirement.
It doesn't make sense. You're speaking of the quiet. It doesn't make sense to me at all. I know most of the 18 to 49-year-old people, they had no money. They're not spending anything.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, they have much more data. And it's been that way since the 70s. I mean, it's not like new. 18 to 49 has always been the be all end all on TV. But yeah, I mean, the NBA does more often than not is the number one show on television. Right.
I guess there's long-term ramifications of marketing to a 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old versus a 54-year-old. But still,
well, it's funny. Since I've gone down this tangent, literally the NFL is the only entity I know of for many years, and for very old people, they remember TV Guide, and everybody would get their TV ratings from TV Guide, the top 10 ratings. It was like a big deal. And that's when people would watch like regular shows. There was not much cable. Shows like Cheers and MASH for all those older people. And they do these absurd numbers, like 50 million. The final of MASH did, I don't know, 70 million viewers, the finale. Doesn't exist anymore. But for years, they always advertised the number of viewers because it was so impressive. The numbers were so impressive. And they would always show the rankings each week, and they would say they would do it by total. But always behind the scenes, 18 to 49 was by far the most important thing. It's impressive. So when you see today, you'll see a press release from NBC or whatever about NFL ratings. They still talk about total viewers because the number is so flippin' impressive. It doesn't matter. But if you look at Program Insider or you look at one of these rating sites, they now rank shows by the demo, the 18 to 49 demo. They never used to do that. They do it now because the total viewers are so unimpressive. Right. They don't care. So they're telling you the truth, what the real shows are to how they rank them. But the NFL, you'll notice they still talk about total viewers because the number is so impressive.
Yeah. NFL is unbelievable. When it comes to that, it's unbelievable the way they're still going. Where do you think we're going to be in 10, 15, 20 years when it comes to TV and streaming and all these different things? How much more will it change? I mean, it's obviously going to keep changing.
They keep predicting streaming.
The takeover's been slower, I think, than people thought. I think at one point, people thought it was going to be like, oh, just click of the button, basically, and we were streaming one day. And it obviously didn't turn out to be like that, but
way slower.
I will say, John, I mean, look, 5 years ago, we started the show here on YouTube, and now there's an NFL game that's airing on YouTube to start, at the start of the season. I think it's the Friday game. So we're making progress, John. We're getting closer.
Well, one thing about the NFL is if you pay them, they'll air anywhere. They'll go on Tubi. They'll go on.
I'm just saying, it's not on YouTube TV. People don't know that. It's not on YouTube TV. No. It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Right here. Well, Birds 365 is on. I love it.
You get the check. They'll do it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No doubt about it. Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. John, let's get back into some Eagles topics here. We got about 25 minutes left on this Football Friday edition. OTAs wrapped up, mandatory minicamp next week, and we are 90 days away from the banner drop for the second Super Bowl title for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Maybe I'll watch it this time. You're right. I don't even
watch it. I asked you about 17. You're like, oh, well, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even
remember if I was there. I'm like, John, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I was probably doing something pregame related to, either radio or
right. Probably like we'll be doing this year for JAKIB.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times I'm doing stuff pregame, so yeah, I don't even remember it. Plus, Lincoln Financial Field, you can't hear much in the press box. Like you can't hear the crowd, unless they pump in the PA. you can't really hear these ceremonies on the field.
Yeah.
The windows aren't open. So yeah, I don't even remember it, but it's real quick. But I know it's important to fans, but yeah, it's
absolutely. Absolutely. They spend a lot of time, money, effort, John, watching this team. That's the
no,
goal.
I know that, but I'm just saying, I'm not going to lie to people. Like I didn't, I was probably doing other things. I don't remember it.
Yeah. It doesn't get your juices flowing. That's fine.
Yeah.
Here we go. D Hughes checks in. D Hughes is my resident like McMullen super fan, John. This guy doesn't disagree with you on anything. I went against the almighty McMullen, and now my Thunder are in trouble. Help.
Well, that I wasn't too confident in the Pacers after turnover 18 in the first half. I mean, they were playing brutal, but it was a bad sign when they kept sticking in the game despite all those problems. It's not over. Oklahoma City's a good team. Obviously, they won freaking 60, 8 games or whatever. It's not over, but yeah, the Pacers they're having a special run. I will say that.
Both of these teams are kind of. It's going to be good. I think it's going to be a good final. But D Hughes, I
love TJ McConnell as a former Sixer. Fucking process bullshit. But he was brought in as one of the. Oh, this guy sucks. Let's play him, and he's still playing. I respect that, and he's
good
still
player, great hustle player, great effort player. Yep, no doubt about it. I like seeing him out there as well. It's funny you had that thought because I did as well. D Hughes, great stuff, brother. Appreciate your super chat. Appreciate all the super chats today. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Hit that like button, John. Let's talk a little Jahad Campbell. All right, what is your feeling right now on where he's going to line up? I think this, John. This is turning into, for me at least in my head, the esoteric nature of Jordan Davis. Now, it might clear up much quicker than Jordan Davis, where he comes, he gets a role, he's a great player, he's the Cooper DeJean of the front seven. Maybe it happens like that, but right now it feels so esoteric to me. It's like, where is he going to be? Off-ball linebacker, edge rusher, here. Like, I don't know. What do you feel on Jahad Campbell right now after 2 weeks of OTAs?
Well, definitely, and Vic explained stack linebacker is much more complicated than pass rusher, just is. So there's more stuff to learn, which makes perfect sense, to be honest. And, that's the foundation of the player. So that's what they're going to work towards when he gets on the practice field in August. That's where they're going to start. But, a lot of it depends, similar to what he was saying about Cooper. All right, who's healthy? Like if N'Kobe's healthy, and you could hear some of the talks about Vic now, he doesn't expect him to be healthy. But when he is healthy, he's going to be the middle linebacker. And if that's the case, whether it's week 4, week 8, whatever, and then Zach's going to be the weak side linebacker. Well, then how do you get Jahad Campbell on the field? Well, the easiest way to get him on the field is a situational pass rusher in a sub package. So, I think this is one of those things where, they're training him behind the scenes to be a hybrid player. And the easiest way to get him on the field is as a pass rusher, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But long term, and I'm talking about 2026 more than this season, I think he's going to be a hybrid player that Eagles fans haven't seen before. And maybe that means stack linebacker on first down, second down, pass rusher on third down. Really haven't had that type of player here in a long time.
What do you think of my characterization, the Cooper DeJean of the front seven?
Yeah, not quite as versatile because you can't. I mean, you're either playing linebacker or off ball or on ball. So, there's not as much versatility you can do versatility. But for the front seven, yes, it's tremendous versatility. And he can also move inside and be a joker stand-up rusher. I know the Eagles are very high on, a lot of times at Alabama would do the Mike Zimmer A-gap stuff where they mug the A-gaps. Alabama did that a lot. and he was very effective at that. So I could see down the road a Vic sort of implementing that. If you can imagine in 2026, Jahad Campbell and Zach Bond right over the center, mugging the A gaps, sugaring the A gaps, whatever your preferred term is. And one of them rushes and one of them drops, and you don't know which one's rushing. That's what when Zimmer had those number one defenses with Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks, that's what he was doing. And you didn't know who was coming and who was dropping. You might see that down the road, and that would make things very difficult for opposing offenses. So a lot of things he can do with that particular player, but it all starts with teaching him all of it. And I think Vic's exact wording was, what would it take to, getting to be a pass rusher? And he said, getting him on the practice field, essentially, because all the skill is there for it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out, how Vic uses them. I'm curious to see, because I do think Vic is the perfect coach to obviously put a guy like that with. And I am fascinated by how much say it seems like Vic Fangio has when it comes to, personnel and stuff like that. I think it's dope, but it is interesting to see, an organization that runs such a tight-knit, thing like this, even having him go up on the podium and speak the way he does. Like, I feel like Vic is kind of the antithesis sometimes of what the Eagles try to always be. He's super blunt, super outspoken. He says who he wants, and he kind of gets what he wants, but it's good. It shows they have a lot of respect for him.
Oh, they do. Clearly. Because I'm sure they try to scale it back. I remember last year when Vic, it was during training camp, where he said, we're asking him some questions about all his sort of students or people he's taught over the years becoming defensive coordinators. And, he admitted that he doesn't teach them everything. He doesn't teach them which was interesting and maybe explains why some of them have failed to such a degree. And he was like, nah, I keep some stuff just to myself. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. So at one point I asked Nick Sirianni, I said, Vic says he keeps some stuff to himself. And, he's not the head coach of this football team. And Nick just laughed and said, no, he tells me, but, sometimes I got to prod. He gave me some kind of answer like that. But I don't know if he does. He does what he wants. And as long as you're successful, they're going to let him do what he wants. Think about Bryce Huff. You think Sean Desai could not show up? I'm not playing this guy. You paid him $51 million.
Yes, you are, my friend.
Yeah. I mean, think about the power to be able to do that. Just to be able to do that.
Well, it's well earned. I mean, it is earned. Sean Desai might take that as a slight, but you don't have the resume Vic Fangio does.
No, it's not even a slight, because 99% are in Sean Desai's category. They can't get away with that, no matter what city. I'm not just talking about Philadelphia. I'm talking about any city. Jeff Stoutland to a certain degree is like that here as well. And there's other guys around the league, but not a lot. And you're right. It's well deserved. It is well deserved.
Think defense is top 10 this year? No.
I didn't think it was going to be top 10 last year. So what do I know? But
you had me concerned though when we discussed this last time, and you were
a lot of moving parts to be top 10 for me. I would say that, but look, and people can point to Zach Bond and ad nauseum, and nobody knew what Zach Bond was. Even Howie, even Beck admitted he had no idea what he was. And you could point to that and say, well, it happened with Zach Bond. Maybe it happens with Azeez Ojulari. Well, again, I'm just playing the odds, Yeah, they're not happening every year where somebody goes from, hey, let's bring this guy in as a special teams player, and he turns into a first team All Pro. Doesn't happen a lot.
Right.
And even Zach told a great story. God bless him. Tell the story about his contract and about the incentives in his contract. And he had a Pro Bowl incentive. He's like, why do I have a Pro Bowl?
Yeah, what the fuck?
Yeah,
this is all just as surprising for Zach as it is for us.
He was even laughing at it. And in the end, he was lowballing himself because he was an All-Pro. But yeah, I mean, it was a tremendous.
Gotta love Vic Fangio, man. He must love that guy.
Oh yeah,
got him paid.
Well, and then he told
his name in the NFL. I mean, he completely changed his life, kind of.
And Vic told the story where, and Zach later confirmed it, that he sort of similar to what's going on with Jihad Campbell now, although Jihad's not on the field. Where he's saying, look, he saw he thought he had the ability to be a stack linebacker. And he said, there's more to learn. There's more to learn at stack linebacker than edge rusher. And so when Zach went in training camp and he said, hey, when am I going to get to rush the passer? And Vic said, we'll get there, but there's more to learn. Similar, exactly what he said about Jihad. There's more to learn at all-ball linebacker. So you got to learn that first, and then we can get to that. And obviously he played so well that he never asked him again about getting, practices an edge rusher. Now, however, and I said, not this week, but on Wednesday, of the week prior, when they were in the bubble, all of a sudden, and it's a more condensed 60, 70-yard field, whatever it was. By the way, did you see Golden Tate ripping that bubble? I don't know why more people don't rip that bubble. It's absurd that a team at the NFL level doesn't have a practice field. Legit, but I digress.
Oh, was he ripping the Eagles bubble? I saw somebody shared it. I didn't watch it yet. I saw he was talking about Wentz, I think, again.
It's absurd. And that was back when Golden was here. How many years ago? It's absurd. But
I don't know what Larry's doing. Why isn't he doing it?
Well, there's no space. And the league won't give him the city won't give
quality good though. Like, does it need to be redone? Even if you have to stay in the bubble?
Very nice with all I tweeted the pictures of the Super Bowl murals and banners, and
it's not like they're not putting any money into it. It's just
no. It's just it's not a regulation field. Again, Texas high schools have regulation field bubbles. It's absurd that maybe the best NFL team doesn't have one. But anyway,
John's like, come on over to Jersey. Yeah, please.
I am. Come to Jersey, Jeffrey.
Your life would be made much easier.
But anyway, now I went off on a tangent. What was I talking about?
You were just talking about
in the bubble.
Yeah.
So everything's more condensed. And I noticed in between, they went to a special teams drill. So a lot of times people aren't paying attention outside and they're looking at the special team stuff, like they were doing the special teams this week. It's the first time I saw the kickoff return. So I was focused on that. Who were the kickoff returners? Yada, yada, yada. But other guys who aren't on special teams, the better players, are doing some individual work. And smack dab right in front of me, there was Jeremiah Washburn working with Nolan Smith, who can't be in team drills, but that makes sense, obviously. Torn tricep, but he can do some individual stuff with a big brace on. And he was working with Zach Bond, edge rushing coach. I think you're going to see. I think you're going to, and they're going to do the same thing with Jahad Campbell. So when you see, in the main practice, he's going to be an off-ball linebacker. But when they're off to the side and they're doing things, he's going to also be working with Jeremiah Washburn.
So,
and now
wow.
Zach's even starting to do it.
So he's a first-team All-Pro last year at off-ball linebacker, and they still think he's capable of doing more for this defense.
Yep. And I think, like that's why I point out to 2026, you might have Vaughn and Campbell together, and the whole plan, I think, is to, Vic doesn't like the blitz, but he likes the zone blitz.
Right.
And that means somebody drops and somebody's still 4 men. And if you got 2 guys who are interchangeable from the second level, or you're mugging the A gap,
right,
and the quarterback doesn't know who's coming and who's dropping,
boy, who would drop?
Well, it would vary from play. It would look the same as Barr and Kendricks. That's why I bring them up. They the number 1 or number 2 defense for 3 straight years with Mike Zimmer, and it was about Barr and Kendricks, and one of them would rush normally, and one of them would drop, and they both could do it, and they both were interchangeable. They both can cover. They both could blitz, and sometimes they both drop. And that's, I think, what the Eagles are envisioning with those 2 players.
Could be a scary tandem.
Yeah. It's all on paper, but the potential is there.
Potential is there. Johnny Mac, good stuff. We got about 6 minutes left in the show today. We got 2 super chats to get to. I'll get to you in a second. One thing I wanted to tell the people about, John, is 2 former Philadelphia Eagles are the head coaches of 2 college football teams, and those teams will play at Lincoln Financial Field this year, Thursday, October 30th. It's Norfolk State versus Delaware State. The head coach of Norfolk State football is none other than Mike Vick, and the head coach of Delaware State is none other than Deshaun Jackson, and those guys will be able to play each other at Lincoln Financial Field late in October. Johnny Mac, if I have an open night, which I probably won't in the season, let's be real, I might have to go down for that. That's pretty cool, dude, that they're doing that.
Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday. I assumed Martin was going to go, being Delaware State. But
right.
And I said, I'll probably go. But, that's June 5th, Johnny Mac, because we were down there yesterday doing some other stuff. But by October 30th, I might have a different, but I think it'll be fun. I'll probably go. Depending, nothing else is going on.
Good stuff. Let's get some super chats here to close out the week. We had a great week of shows this week. We do appreciate each and every one of you guys, man, who lock in with us on the off season. It's really cool that we have a viewership and a fan base and an audience that tunes in here all through the off season. So we appreciate each and every one of you. Anwan checking in. What's up, Anwan? He says, Jeff was not lying. We are spoiled. I watch every game from 93 season, and we was trash. LOL. We are in the golden era of Eagles football for sure.
Yeah. If you're gonna, you can go back to before Dick Vermeil. You talk about trash. This organization was not good. And things have changed drastically since really Jeffrey Lurie turned it around. And they had some pockets with Dick Vermeil and Buddy. They had some great defenses, and they had some pockets, but there were a lot of bad times.
Good stuff, Amwan. Appreciate you, brother. James M checks in. What's up, James? John refuses to believe it, but I think Dean is done in Philly, and Campbell will ensure it, possibly by the deadline.
I don't know what that means, but I've said pretty consistently that Nakobe probably won't be back next season. you're not going to be able to trade him. Number one, he's not healthy. If he's not back by week 8, you're not trading
Well, what if
him.
he's back by, let's say, week 4, and then you have the trade deadline is, I don't know.
No, he's gonna be the middle line. Yeah, Vic said that. Don't believe me. Vic has said that. So I mean, Vic likes Nakobe Dean. The problem long term is the injuries crop into it, just what we talk about with other players for different reasons. You can't pay everybody. If he continues to play at the level he played last year, you won't be able to afford him. If he gets hurt again, the injuries will derail everything. So there's a very small path that he would be here in 2026 under any circumstance. And yes, they drafted Jahad Campbell. By 2026, the linebackers are going to be Campbell and Bond. That's the plan. But this season, no. Depends on health, but Nakobe's going to be the middle linebacker if he gets healthy. Oh, you're muted.
My bad. Sorry about that. Appreciate you, James M. Appreciate everybody watching today and all week long. We appreciate you guys. As always, hit the like button for us. I'm not sure what we're at on the like button, but we had pretty good viewership in here today for a Football Friday. Johnny Mac, your final thoughts on this week of Birds 365. We started it off a couple hours late this week. We started off with a Monday 10 to 12 show, which I actually enjoyed. I won't lie to you. But it would never happen full time because John goes to the NovaCare complex. So it would never be a realistic thing for us. But that was nice. And here we are closing it up at 10 a.m. here on a Football Friday. Your final thoughts, Johnny Mac.
Yeah, we're gearing up for the final remnants of the spring season for the Philadelphia Eagles. So next week, mandatory minicamp on Tuesday, only one day. The Eagles were going to get their Super Bowl rings after, but that was pushed back to July now. Evidently, they're not done the rings, so obviously they have to be done to hand them out.
Anybody who's ever worked with a jeweler, it's like, I'm not surprised they got.
Well, and those are pretty high level jewelry.
Yeah,
it's not like, so
what's one of those worth? Like real value, not speculated value of like what you could pawn it for. Like, what do you think it cost them to make a ring?
Well, the last one, and they always get better. I mean, a lot of money. There's so many diamonds. I mean, I never looked.
I thought I read somewhere that they weren't as expensive as I thought they were.
I don't know. I don't know, but I do remember
cost of the Super Bowl ring. It shows up here, but usually comes to between 30 and 50 G's per ring.
There you go. I mean,
the 2015.
All right, 37,000 each is what? 219 diamonds, along with 17 green sapphires. This was their last Super Bowl ring. 10-karat white gold, 200. I don't know how you get 200. But I'm not a diamond. I don't know. I bought like 3 diamonds in my life. 37,000 each is what that was worth the last Super Bowl. It'll be more than that because everybody tries to outdo what they did before. And I'm sure Jeffrey will. One thing about Jeffrey, though, he gave rings to everybody. Like, he gave rings to Howard. And
are you getting a ring?
No.
No.
I would not accept a ring. People don't understand that. No. You know how many people asked me that the first time? No. We don't work for the team. We don't. That's my whole thing. No, I don't want a ring.
You wouldn't take a ring that says McMullen on it? An Eagles Super Bowl? Come on.
No,
man.
I wouldn't. No.
No, you don't want to compromise?
No. That's exactly what happens. No. Nor should they give us rings. They don't give us rings. We shouldn't get rings. We don't want
Somebody
rings.
in there's getting a ring. Is Elliott getting a ring? Elliott's got it.
Elliott might get a ring because he works for the team.
Right.
I don't know how that works. Like Howard, they gave Howard a ring. They gave some WI people a ring. But they work for the team. I don't know if Elliott works for the team I don't think he does, so he won't get a ring. But I don't know. I don't know the intermixings of what WIP pays for.
Yeah, I'll take a ring. Come on, Jeff. You want to give me a ring? I've been glazing the Eagles for years.
I will not take a ring. People find that very hard to believe. It's not even. No. I don't want your ring. No.
I didn't think you would. I was just kind of messing around. Good stuff, James Zeb. Good stuff, everybody, on all the chats today. Johnny Mac, great week of shows as always. Thank you for doing it today, brother. And we will talk to you on Monday. All right, on Birds 365. Thank you, J Mac.
All right, thanks everybody.
All right, there's Johnny Mac. John McMullen joining us here on Birds 365. Great week of shows. Make sure you follow John at JF McMullen and follow me over on Twitter at Zander Krause. So I can't get this thing. I tell you what, you guys want to know the worst part about what I do? It's figuring out how to manage all the social medias. I mean, oh my God, I got Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I want personal so I can, share things with my family that's not public to the whole world. I got businesses. I got the JAKIB accounts. I'm like, dude, I need to organize my social media. So what I decided to do is Zander Krause is going to be my public personal accounts. All right. It's going to be for all my public promotion of Eagles, whatever other content I end up making in my life. I have some ideas on other content I want to start making as well. I'm not sure if you guys would support me. You guys are all Eagles fans, obviously, but I do have some other ideas on content. So all Zander Krause is going to be that. And then I have a private account, which is going to be just for family, just for documentation of my life. If I have kids and all those different things. So I have that. Then I got the JAKIB accounts, and then any other businesses in the future that I would make would have their own accounts, and I would promote them through Zander Krause. So it's a nightmare. All right. It's a cesspool. Social media is a full-time job. There's a reason I stick to YouTube mostly because that's where the money's made. That's where the viewership is. So I appreciate all you guys, but that's the setup. So make sure you guys follow me over at Zander Krause on YouTube or on X, excuse me. And Zander Krause Show on Instagram, but I have to wait 2 weeks or something to change it to Zander Krause. So we'll figure that out, but I'll do it there. But appreciate all of you guys for being here, for doing it, for rocking with us today. I do have to run today. Unfortunately, I don't have any time for Zander time. I have some things going on in the house. I got to get off the air. All right. So if you guys saw the setup, I'm down at the family house. It's like I'm sitting in the direct middle of the home, and I'm loud, okay? I'm a loud person. Like I was joking with my girlfriend because my brother's here, and I'm like, Joseph's here tomorrow. He's very loud on the phone, and my girlfriend's like, oh, that's Rich coming from you. You scream, and the whole neighborhood can hear you. So I'm like, yeah, I guess you're right. So I got to get off the air, but I do appreciate all of you guys for rocking it out with me. All right, hit the like button on the show. We've had a great week of shows. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Go and follow me, will you? All right, I appreciate all of you guys. See you next time on Birds 365.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.